Next Curve.
Hey everyone, welcome to Next Curve's reThink webcast and our Analyst Corner. I'm Leonard Lee, Executive Analyst at Next Curve. Welcome to this episode of Silicon Futures, where we cover the stuff happening in the semiconductor industry that matter and only that matter. And so in this episode, we're going to be talking about Intel Vision 2024, and I'm joined by Karl Freund, who is the founder and principal analyst at Cambrian-AI Research LELC, and he is a leading analyst covering the semiconductor industry, and I'm really glad to have him collaborating with me on this program where we try to focus on AI, but we end up like going off script occasionally, right?
There's a script?
Well, not really. Actually, we shoot from the hip. That's the way we do it, right? So, hey, welcome. How are you? I haven't seen
Thank you. Doing good. Still a little bit red from Phoenix, I think.
Really?
I don't know. It must be Phoenix.
It's not.
Or maybe it was Cadence Live. That's what it was, Cadence Live. Went for a walk around the amazing Sunnyvale area. It's like transformed from when I was a kid and used to work out there.
Oh, really? Yeah. I've never heard Sunnyvale described as such, but
well, they got a football stadium.
So yeah, there was the what do you call it? Oh, never mind. Anyways, hey, glad to have you on again. It's been far too long since we last chatted. A lot has happened. I mean, last time we chatted was about GTC, but now, of course, Intel had their Vision 2024 event, and for those of you who don't know about Vision 2024, it's really their partner customer event, right? It tends to be exclusive. Day one is like all NDA, and where we get exclusive access to many of the executives. So, we did have, sessions with Pat Gelsinger, Sachin Katti, Greg Lavender. So all these big wigs within the Intel organization, we had a chance to pick their brains about, in particular this year, what's going on with AI. But I mean, there were a ton of announcements, right, Karl?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was an event that everybody was expecting to see Gaudi 3, and they did not disappoint. Gaudi 3 was launched, and it's really good chip. They really knocked the cover off of this one. Is it too early for baseball analogies? Maybe so. Yeah. They slam dunked it. How about that? NBA Finals. They did a good job. Gaudi 3 is 40% faster, 40% faster than H100. Yep. And since that's the current king of the hill, you could say Gaudi 3 is now the king of the hill of what's shipping now. It will be shipping here in, I don't know, a couple months. They are shipping it to the Intel Developers Cloud, and they'll start shipping to OEMs certainly by the beginning of the third quarter, if not sooner. They got a lot of OEMs signed up. That was huge, right? Because Gaudi 1 didn't really get anybody. Gaudi 2 got a couple. But Gaudi 3 is picked up by most everybody that's looking for a working solution that can be delivered, right?
Right.
I mean, I think the quote that sort of nailed it, I think, was that this is the best GPU. Not GPU. It's not a GPU technically.
Well, yes.
It's an ASIC. It's an ASIC. Right?
Yeah.
But it's the fastest ASIC you can buy that you can actually get.
Right.
And you can buy it in a server from your favorite server vendor.
Yep.
And I think it will compete very well with H100 to the extent that you can compete with H100 and not compete with GB200, right? And so that's kind of the issue here is this is a great chip, but NVIDIA's already announced a much better chip if you can wait. And I don't think people can wait. So I expect Gaudi 3 will do well. It looks to be faster than AMD 300, okay, MI 300. 40% faster time to train, 50% better power efficiency than an H100. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. In fact, it's very, very good.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that that kind of popped out for me was the energy efficiency, compared to H100 for certain inference workloads, right? In particular for the larger models, right? So, they released a white paper and they compared H100 or Gaudi 3 to H100 as well as H200. And so, I think the way that Intel is positioning its portfolio is a little bit different from what I think we're seeing with NVIDIA, or at least a lot of the focus of what NVIDIA is doing has been on Blackwell, at least since GTC. But as we know, AI is broad. We talk about it and speak about it and think about it way too generically. But when we look at what a lot of people are talking about and what actually Jensen focused a lot about at GTC was inference and the importance of being able to have large scale compute that can, in an energy efficient way, handle probably a larger scale of persistent inferencing that's going to be happening, right? So,
yeah, I think they got a little over 2 times on average, better power efficiency for inference processing versus the H100. The challenge they're going to have 2 challenges. One challenge is as inference moves towards mixture of expert models, really large models, or even smaller models made out of mixture of experts. The performance is a function of the networking performance, networking bandwidth, not so much the GPU and the memory bandwidth. They got plenty of HBM, so they should be okay there. Yeah. But NVIDIA showed the NVL72 as being 30 times faster than H100. So if you're 2 times faster than H100, along comes a competitor that's 30 times faster, that means it's probably about 30 times cheaper, or maybe 15 times cheaper as well, right? So I think that's going to be their challenge, number one. The second challenge they're going to have is really the roadmap. The roadmap shows that Gaudi 3 is the last Gaudi. Salute Gaudi, nice job, but the party's over after this one. Well, Intel's quick to point out that that's not the case. If you're running large language models, you'll be able to run on Falcon Shores with maybe 1 or 2 changes, 1 or 2 lines of code that have to change. That's not bad. But there's an impression that, well, Falcon Shores is a GPU, Gaudi's an ASIC, long-lived ASICs, they're dead. We're all going to GPUs because they are more programmable and potentially a lot faster. So I think that's going to be the problem. I think Intel has to demonstrate. They've got it when they have it up on the NVIDIA Developers Cloud. They need to provide the benchmark and say, look, no, this is really, really better than anything else you can buy out there today. Or at least anything else you can take delivery on today. And if they can do that, I think they'll be quite successful. I was surprised to see them best AMD they didn't do it in comparisons by AMD, but it's not hard math. Yeah. It's comparable to AMD and a little bit faster. So they did a good job.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the challenges here is that there's a lot of apples to oranges comparisons going on here, right? Because, like even with the numbers that we see with NVL 72, I mean, that's an entire system, right?
Yeah.
The question is what will we actually see with a Gaudi 3 based system that's scaled out, right?
Yeah. You look at it exactly. And so, and you scale it out to a rack, you're going to use Ethernet to connect Gaudis to Gaudis. Now, they do have twice the Ethernet bandwidth per die, or per package, I should say, and that's good. That is it's not the same performance you can get on NVLink 5. It's just not even close. But maybe you don't need that much networking performance. I mean, if you're running, Llama 370 billion, that's probably going to solve a lot of people's problems. And we'll see how well Gaudi 3 compares to NVIDIA if they both run NVLink benchmarks. And I think they both will. And NVIDIA has never seen an ML Commons benchmark they didn't love, and they didn't just trounce. So we'll have to see. I don't think AMD will run the benchmarks. They said they would, but they didn't. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I hope they do. I think the MI300 is a great chip, but it's kind of like you got to put up the numbers, right?
So one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting was the 3 SKUs. They had a PCIe card version of Gaudi 3, a mezzanine card, and then the baseboard. That's where you can have 8 Gaudi, Gaudis in a chassis, and it looks very similar to what we see with the HGX 100s and H100s. So different flavors. My whole take was is that because there was more of, at least it seemed to me, and based on what Pat was saying, Pat Gelsinger, a more of a inference orientation to these chips and devices, that Intel is really looking at positioning the Gaudi portfolio for application across sort of this cloud to edge infrastructure continuum, right? And so, as companies are looking to modernize their infrastructures, whether hyperscaler or service provider, it could be tier 2, or even, let's say, folks out there that are, trying to convert their CDNs and ADNs into distributed AI farms. It kind of suits that purpose, where the thesis that these inference workloads are going to come proliferate across the edge, and the different types of edges, that you have a different kind of hardware that can be implemented using a common hardware, as well as infrastructure software stack, right? Because they introduced the other thing that I thought was big that they introduced, because everyone gives them a hard time for not being as much of a software company, and NVIDIA gets all the love in that department. They introduced the Intel Tiber software brand, right, where they bundled in pretty much the trust stuff, the AI stuff, the edge stuff, and I think there was a fourth, and it escapes me what that fourth one is. Yeah,
I walked through the display area looking for a Tiber, and it's hard to tell what's a Tiber and what's not. So it's a new brand. They got branding's hard. You got to spend a lot of money and do it for a long time to really create a new brand. I'm not sure that's going to solve their problem. One API is still not supported on Gaudi. One API they say will be supported on Falcon Shores when it comes out sometime next year. But you're talking about inference, and you step back and you say, well, where can Intel sell Gaudi 3? They're not going to sell it to the tier 1 cloud service providers. I don't think. I mean, they've already got trucks and trucks and trucks full of NVIDIA on the floor. They've got their own chip, quite a few of them, right? Every cloud service provider now has their own chip for training and for inference. So they're not going to sell there. They're going to sell to the enterprise. And well, where do most of the enterprises do their training? Well, first of all, they use foundation models, which are all trained on the hyperscale. So go back and see the previous paragraph, right? It's all going to be on NVIDIA. But once you train a model, it'd be kind of nice to use it. And that's what inferencing is all about. Yeah. And that's where I think Intel's got a good opportunity for Gaudi 3 is to go after the enterprise, maybe go after sovereign wealth, funded sovereign computer data centers, like we've seen in the United Arab Emirates. All the other countries in the world want to have a large language model that's trained in their language or languages and are cognizant of the data that is really particular to that country or region. And so I think that's a great opportunity for Gaudi. Go after those sovereign data centers.
Yeah. Well, they also announced Xeon 6, right, with Granite Rapids and Sierra Forest. And, I think here was the thing, because Vision 2024 was about much more than Gaudi 3. And yes, that was like literally the first thing that we talked about when we arrived. But, when you look at what they're going to be doing with Xeon 6, which is really split into these, these two, what's called SKUs, right? SKU families. You have Granite Rapids, which is performance core based. They have like 128 cores, so pretty much on par, I think, with AMD. You have Sierra Forest, which are the efficiency cores, right? And so you have these new Xeon processors that are going to come to market for different, enterprise applications as well as for hyperscalers, right? Because, let's face it, the install base out there is still majority x86. Yeah, as much as Jensen likes to talk about the $1 trillion, accelerated computing opportunity. The thing is, well, what do you mean by accelerated computing? Do you mean that it's all going to be GPU? I think that's going to be a really, really interesting debate going forward. But the reality is the brownfield is largely x86, right? And so, one of the things the angles that I thought was really interesting, because you were speaking about the opportunity for Intel on the inference side, is also, this Xeon 6 Plus Gaudi, right? So is there an opportunity for Intel to now look at their install base and then take a modernization path with some of their customers? And I agree with you. Selling in Gaudi sort of in a greenfield kind of modality is going to be really tough, especially if you're going to go head to head with NVIDIA. But the thing that might really play in their favor is, you still have a lot of x86 out there, maybe waiting to be modernized or AI augmented. What's the opportunity there? Because, going back to the SKUs that they have, they have 3, and it looks like for, different Goldilocks sizes or, bear sizes, right? One for Papa Bear, one for Mama, and one for the baby one. So I don't know. That was something that I thought was interesting and a key takeaway for me. So I'll be curious to see what Intel does with that angle, if they see it at all. I mean, I did speak with a few of their executives about this, and it'll be a question of whether or not they execute on this and how well.
No, I think the Xeon 6 looks really good, and I don't know if they're going to catch up with AMD, but they're closing the gap pretty dramatically with Xeon 6. The Xeon 5 is like, hey, you can save a ton of money. Look at the TCO of replacing Xeon 1 with Xeon 6. The guy that's still on Xeon 1, he's probably not looking to upgrade anytime soon. But along comes Xeon 6. Now you've got enough cores. Yeah. You've got enough power efficiency, and by the way, you've got pretty decent AI, which AMD still relies on accelerator. for their for Epic family. We'll see if that changes.
Yeah.
I think they've got a play there. I think they do have a play there without even Gaudi entering the picture. But you're right. You add Gaudi to the mix, and you've got a pretty powerful story.
The way that Intel it addresses its brownfield opportunities, I think, is really going to determine how well it competes. At least that's my perspective and what I got.
Yeah, I mean, I think we ought to just point out that they're 5 nodes in 4 years. They've been able to execute that roadmap without any delays. It's like, Intel, really? So we do need to make sure the audience knows that they're not fixed yet versus TSMC, but they're on their way to creating a North American based foundry business that will be attractive to other chip companies that right now really have no choice but to go to TSMC.
And Intel's still using TSMC for Gaudi, right? I think it's Gaudi 3 is based on 5
nanometer.
Yeah, 5 nanometer.
Yeah, 5 nanometer.
Right. Yeah. So, but I mean, honestly, I think they're executing on the 5 nodes in 4 years, and I think leaning on their advanced packaging and integration technologies, I think has been a nice cushion for them as they continue to try to gain leadership on the process technology side. So I think what I think you hit on this a moment ago. And that's the system side, right? Intel kind of got their hands slapped by the industry 15, 20 years ago when they came out with white boxes. And everybody says, no, you can't do that. No. Have reference design, that's fine, but don't compete with us, would say all the OEMs, right? Well, now, if you really want an AI factory, as Jensen would say, you can't do that with racking and stacking for you servers on PCIe. It's not going to work. And so what NVIDIA has done with NVL72 is really set the bar to say, if you want to create AI, there's nothing anywhere close, and you want to use very large AI inference processing for very large models, there's nothing that will compete with the NVL72 or NVL36. So I think it'll be interesting to see how AMD and Intel respond to that, because they could do a partnership, a collaboration with Supermicro or Dell, HPE, right, and create a full system, and then let them sell that full system. But if they stay at the component level, they're not going to be competitive. Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And you have not only the folks on the foundry side talking about systems, chips of systems, or is it systems of chips? I think it's systems of chips, right?
I think it's systems of chips.
Yeah. And then you have both Greg Lavender as well as Pat Gelsinger talking much more about systems. Right.
They talked a lot about systems, but I didn't see any systems.
Yeah, I think it's more mentality. But one of the things I think they really need is are a couple of champions. I mean, everyone knows OpenAI equals NVIDIA GPUs, right? Of whatever variety. In particular, H100. What do people know Gaudi for? Who's the GenAI or massive model champion for them? I mean, these are going to be the companies that drive that optimized system design at a large scale. And so something that's kind of marquee like that, where they can represent the leadership and maybe the competitiveness of a Intel-based system for generative AI, massive or hypercomputing. I think that's really what they need. And
Yeah, I agree.
and then I think, the same goes for AMD. They don't have one either. And so these are I think from a branding perspective, the big shortfalls that everyone else suffers when, they're competing with NVIDIA and Jensen for mind share. Right. But yeah, I mean, that's a great point about the system. But hey, you know what? Here's the other thing that keeps coming up is data type, and so there's now this big focus on getting to floating point, 4, right? FP4. And we talked about on the GTC 2024 segment that we did about the second gen transformer engine that comes with NVIDIA. Well, basically all of the Blackwell systems. I mean no, it doesn't come with all of them. But anyway, that really being a factor in benchmarks, right? It's like apples,
Right.
orange.
That's why AMD likes to focus on flops, because then they don't have to deal with the fact they do not have a transformer engine. Oh, by the way, they don't have 4-bit float. So, I mean, that right there is roughly a 6x performance advantage that they and Intel have to cede to NVIDIA, at least in the current state of the art.
Yeah, I mean, but then we also have to remember it's important to consider the model compression technology as well at the same time, right? And so that's I think something that a lot of people hadn't been talking about. At least I didn't hear much about it until this year. So. But it seems to be becoming a bigger and bigger deal in a lot of discussions that we're having. So, anyways, what did you think about Lunar Lake before we wrap things up here, or did you not care at all?
No, I don't. Sorry, I focus on heavy duty AI.
Oh, come on.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, come on. All that stuff, that heavy duty stuff that's happening up in the cloud, right, is going to eventually either land on an endpoint device or it's going to be consumed by one, right?
Yeah.
So come on, you got to care. Carl, I thought you were a caring guy.
You know what? When I see somebody can actually beat or come close to matching Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite, then I'll care. And Lunar Lake looks like it could be close. The problem is they talk about tops, but you don't know whether that means the NPU, or does that mean NPU at GPU and CPU, right? So it's not clear there's apples to apples comparisons right now.
Yeah.
By the way, that's something that ML Commons is addressing.
Yeah.
If the vendors will run those benchmarks.
Yeah, and it is a challenge, and I think the establishment of some kind of consistent standard for benchmarking would be great, but it's going to be complex, right? At the moment, it's just a spaghetti mess, and everyone's taking advantage of the fact that the basket of fruit has all kinds of stuff in it. All varieties of fruit that you can imagine. I think the Lunar Lake, 100 total tops, right? So, the X Elite is 75, and then I think it's 45 for the EU for both, actually. Right. So, it's Meteor Lake didn't quite cut it, I suppose, and this is where with Lunar Lake, Intel's looking to support Microsoft's definition, this kind of weird definition of what an AI PC is. But anyways, it should be exciting. Coming, next half of the year, you're going to see a lot of silicon up and down and across the
Yep.
the edge cloud continuum that are going to really make this competitive race
Yeah.
interesting. So
Very much so. We'll see what AMD says at their next quarterly announcement.
yeah,
They've been in market long enough. There should be some MI300 news from that. I don't expect Intel will, because they just announced it. All right, so they're about 6 months. They're about 6 months behind AMD right now, and then we'll have to wait till end of the year to see how Blackwell does.
yeah. And in the meantime, everyone needs to figure out how to monetize. So anyway, Karl, great having you on again as usual, and thanks for joining me in the discussion. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Please subscribe to the Next Curve YouTube channel. The easiest thing to do is subscribe to the Next Curve research portal and media center at www.next-curve.com for a constant diet of tech and industry insights that matter. And also follow Karl Freund. He is a contributor at Forbes, and you can just look him up on Forbes and see all the wonderful work that he does and his analysis. He has a bunch of stuff out there related to AI in every flavor you can imagine, except for AI PC. Right.
That'll change as we actually get them.
Yeah. And so, check them out at www.Cambrian- is it Cambrian-AI?
Cambrian-AI.com.
There you go.
So if you're not a Forbes subscriber, you can see my Forbes articles. They show up there five days after they show up on Forbes.
All right. Okay, great. Well, wonderful. Karl, see you next time, okay? Take care, everyone.
See you soon, guys. Take care.